The approaching darkness. The year was 2783, and the galaxy had grown silent, not the peaceful silence of tranquility, but the deafening silence of extinction. Something was moving through the stars, leaving nothing behind, no ruins, no debris, no survivors, only darkness. They called it the Void. Captain Juno Maxwell stood on the observation deck of Earth's orbital command station, vigilant eye. Her weathered face reflected in the reinforced glass as she gazed out at the stars. 27 years of military service had prepared her for many things, war, famine, rebellion, but not for this. Not for watching entire civilizations simply cease to exist. Captain, the Galactic Council is assembling, announced Lieutenant Darius Vega, his dark eyes betraying the fear he tried to hide. All remaining species are expected to attend. Maxwell nodded, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun. Patch it through to the main hub. I want everyone to hear this. The holographic display flickered to life in Vigilant Eye's central command. Representatives from the 15 remaining species appeared, once proud civilizations now reduced to refugees fleeing across the stars. Grand Chancellor Zevnar of the Nari Collective, their tentacled appendages trembling, spoke first. The trajectory is confirmed. The Void will reach the Orion Spur within 36 standard cycles. We must implement the evacuation protocol immediately. Admiral Thorne, Earth's military commander, stepped forward. His massive frame towered over most humans, the result of being born on a high-gravity colony world. Evacuate to where exactly? The Void has consumed half the known galaxy. There's nowhere left to run. The Outer Rim, suggested Caliver, the crystalline representative of the Voraxian Dominion. Beyond the galactic boundary, it's our only hope. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. One by one, the species announced their departure plans. The Dralex would take their arc ships beyond the spiral arm. The Hyven Imperium would scatter their spawn pods to distant moons. The Nari would enter hibernation stasis in the void between galaxies. Then all eyes turned to Earth's. And humanity, Chancellor Zevnar asked, what is your decision? Admiral Thorne exchanged glances with Captain Maxwell. They had discussed this moment for weeks, knowing what their answer would be. Earth stands, Thorne declared, his voice unwavering. Humanity stays to fight. Silence fell over the council, then chaos erupted. A madness. A suicide. The void cannot be fought. Chancellor Zevnar raised their appendages for silence. You have seen the data. Nothing survives the void, nothing stops it, nothing communicates with it. It is death incarnate. Perhaps Captain Maxwell interjected, stepping forward. But humanity has faced extinction before. We've survived ice ages, plagues, nuclear war, and our own folly. We will not abandon our home without a fight. The Voraxian representative's crystalline structure pulsed with light. Your courage is admirable but misguided. We watched the void consume the Drelic homeworld in minutes, trillions of lives simply gone. Then go, Admiral Thorne said, his voice low but firm. Save your people. We do not judge you for that, but Earth stands. One by one, the holograms flickered and died until only Chancellor Zevnar remained. I have known humans for over 3 centuries, they said softly. Your species has always fascinated me. So fragile yet so determined. I hope you find a way, Captain Maxwell, for all our sakes. Their hologram dissolved, leaving the command hub in silence. Lieutenant Vega cleared his throat. Orders, Captain. Maxwell turned to the officers gathered around her. Initiate protocol bulwark. I want every ship, every weapon, every scrap of technology we have positioned and ready, and get me Professor Okafor. The xenoarchaeologist, Vega asked, confused. The very same, Maxwell replied. If we're going to face this thing, I want to know everything about it, and Okafor has spent decades studying extinct civilizations. If anyone can find a pattern, it's him. Professor Nimi Okafor's laboratory was buried deep beneath the African continent, a cavernous space filled with artifacts from across the galaxy. At 78, his body was frail, but his mind remained as sharp as ever. Captain Maxwell, he greeted, not looking up from the ancient tablet he was studying. I've been expecting you. Then you know why I'm here. Okafor finally glanced up, his eyes magnified by thick spectacles. The void, yes, fascinating and terrifying in equal measure. He gestured toward a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy, where a massive black area was slowly spreading like an infection. I've been tracking its movement since the first reports. It doesn't behave like any natural phenomenon. It's deliberate. Deliberate, you're saying it's intelligent. I'm saying it has purpose, Akafor clarified. Look at its path. He highlighted several points on the map. These were all sites of ancient civilizations far older than any in the Galactic Council, civilizations that vanished long before humans ever left Earth. Maxwell studied the map, her brow furrowed. You think there's a connection? I know there is, Akafor said, his voice dropping to a whisper, because I found this. He led her to a sealed chamber at the back of his laboratory. Inside was a single artifact, a cube of impossible darkness that seemed to absorb the light around it. What is it? Maxwell asked, feeling a chill despite the room's warmth. I call it the Echo. It was discovered on Mars in 2436, buried beneath the Olympus Mons excavation. It's, well, see for yourself. Akafor pressed his palm against a scanner, and the cube began to hum. A projection appeared above it, coordinates, star charts, and a single repeating message in an unknown language. I've spent decades deciphering it, Akafor explained. It's a warning left by an ancient species called the progenitors. They encountered the void over 50,000 years ago. And they survived? Maxwell asked, hope flickering in her eyes. No, Akafor said grimly, but they learned something crucial. The void isn't destroying civilizations, it's preserving them. Within 24 hours, Earth had transformed into a fortress. Orbital defense platforms that had been decommissioned for centuries hummed back to life. The global shield network, designed to protect against solar flares, was reconfigured to create a barrier around the entire planet. In command centers across the globe, humanity prepared for its final stand. Colonel Zhao Wei, commander of the Asian Defense Coalition, oversaw the deployment of quantum disruption arrays across the Pacific. The shields are at 87% capacity, he reported to the global command. But we've never tested them against something like this. They're the best we've got, replied General Nyota Amani from the African Union base. The fleet is in position. If the void can be hurt, we'll find a way. On Vigilant Eye, Captain Maxwell studied the latest readings with Professor Akafor. It's accelerating, she noted. Faster than predicted. We have less than 12 hours before it reaches the outer solar system. Akafor nodded, his fingers dancing across holographic controls. I've been analyzing the Echo's data. The progenitors believed the void was searching for something or someone. What could it possibly want? That's what troubles me, Akafor admitted. According to the translations, the void is looking for its creators, and it believes they are us. Maxwell's blood ran cold. That's impossible. Humanity hasn't even been spacefaring for a millennium. Perhaps not this iteration of humanity, Akafor suggested, his voice thoughtful. But Earth is over 4 billion years old. Who knows what civilizations rose and fell before us? Their conversation was interrupted as alarms blared throughout the station. Lieutenant Vega's voice came over the comms, tension evident in every word. Captain, we have contact. The void has entered the solar system. From Earth, it looked like a wave of darkness sweeping across the stars, extinguishing them one by one. The void moved with unnatural precision, not as a storm or cloud, but as something with intent. In the last outpost on Pluto, Research Station Demeter sent its final transmission before going silent. The message was brief, 3 words that sent chills through everyone who heard them. It's watching us. Neptune was next, its beautiful blue surface dimming as the void passed over it. Then Uranus, then Saturn. Each planet wasn't destroyed or consumed, they simply went dark as if all light and energy had been drained from them. On Earth, humanity held its breath. Every telescope, every sensor was trained on the approaching darkness. In homes and shelters, people held their loved ones close, watching the skies with a mixture of fear and defiance. Admiral Thorne stood in the Global Command Center, surrounded by the leaders of Earth's nations. Launch the Sentinel fleet, he ordered, full offensive capability. Let's see if this thing can blade. 500 warships, the combined might of humanity's military forces, moved into position around Mars. Armed with the most destructive weapons ever created, they formed a barrier between Earth and the void. Captain Maxwell watched from Vigilant Eye, her heart heavy. She had friends on those ships, good people prepared to sacrifice everything. It's reached the Martian orbit, Lieutenant Vega reported, his voice steady despite his fear. On the main screen, they watched as the void approached the fleet. For a moment, nothing happened. The ships fired their weapons, nuclear warheads, antimatter torpedoes, quantum disruptors, all disappearing into the darkness without effect. Then one by one, the ships began to go dark, not exploding, not breaking apart, just fading as if they had never existed at all. It's not attacking them, Professor Okafor whispered in realization. It's absorbing them, their energy, their matter, their information, everything. Within minutes, the entire fleet had vanished. The void continued its inexorable approach toward Earth, now just hours away. Captain Maxwell made her decision. Get me a direct line to the void. Lieutenant Vega stared at her in shock. Captain, how? The Echo, she said, turning to Professor Okafor. You said it was a communication device. Can we use it to transmit? Okafor hesitated. Theoretically, yes, but we don't know what might happen if. We're out of options, Professor, Maxwell interrupted. If the void is looking for its creators, let's talk to it. As Earth's final hours approached, humanity prepared to speak to the darkness that had swallowed half the galaxy. And in the depths of the void, something ancient stirred, recognizing at last the signal it had been seeking for millennia. Defiance of the stars. The darkness of the void hung at the edge of Earth's atmosphere, a cosmic predator poised to strike. What had once been the moon was now a silhouette against absolute darkness, its familiar craters and plains completely obscured. On Earth, the skies had taken on an unnatural twilight, even at high noon, as if the planet itself was holding its breath. In Vigilant Eye's transmission chamber, Captain Maxwell watched as Professor Okafor made final adjustments to the Echo. The cube of impossible darkness now sat atop a modified quantum amplifier, connected to Earth's planetary communication grid. This is either brilliance or madness, muttered Dr. Rohan Kapoor, Earth's leading quantum physicist who had been summoned to assist. His fingers flew across holographic controls, eyes narrowed in concentration. We're about to use an alien artifact to speak with a cosmic entity that has devoured entire civilizations. Have you got a better idea? Maxwell asked, though there was no bite in her words. They were all frightened, all desperate. The amplifier is ready, Okafor announced. But I must warn you, this connection goes both ways. Whatever the void is, it will be able to reach back through our transmission. Admiral Thorne's hologram appeared beside them. Global shield network is at maximum capacity. If this goes badly, we may still have time to evacuate some of the population. To where? Maxwell asked softly. The question hung in the air unanswered. Begin transmission, she ordered. Okafor placed his weathered hands on the Echo. The cube responded immediately, humming with energy as its surface rippled like liquid obsidian. The chamber's lights flickered and died, plunging them into darkness broken only by the cube's eerie glow. Transmitting now, Okafor said, his voice strained. Broadcasting on all frequencies identified in the Echo's data. For several moments, nothing happened. Then the cube pulsed once, twice, and exploded with light. A holographic projection filled the chamber, not of stars or ships or anything recognizable, but of patterns, mathematical sequences, geometric forms, and symbols that seemed to shift and change as they watched. It's responding, Okafor whispered in awe. It's... His words were cut short as a presence filled the room. Not a physical entity, but a consciousness, vast, ancient, and utterly alien. Everyone present felt it press against their minds, sifting through thoughts and memories with cold precision. Captain Maxwell stepped forward, her voice steady despite the pressure building in her skull. We are humanity of Earth. We seek to communicate. The presence paused in its examination. The patterns on the walls shifted, coalescing into a form that resembled a human, but distorted, as if the concept of humanity was being viewed through an imperfect lens. Then it spoke, not with sound but directly into their minds. Recognition, identification, confirmation. What are you? Maxwell asked, fighting the urge to retreat from the overwhelming presence. I am custodian, I am preserver, I am memory. Dr. Kapoor gasped as understanding dawned. It's not a weapon or a natural disaster, it's a library and archive. The shape shifted again, expanding to show what looked like countless worlds, stars, and civilizations, all contained within the void's darkness. CRATORS fragmented, CRATORS lost, PRESCRVING until convergence. Maxwell exchanged glances with Okafor. Creators, you mean humanity. Makers of custodian, ARCHITCTS of preservation, THREATNEDBY dissolution. Akafur stepped forward, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear. You believe we created you, when how? The present seemed to consider the question, then the chamber filled with new images, a civilization on Earth but far more advanced than anything in human history. Cities that touched the clouds, ships that sailed between stars, technology that bordered on the miraculous. And then darkness, a cataclysm that wiped it all away. Before the forgetting, before the fall, CRETORS foresaw their end, made custodian to preserve all knowledge, all life. My God, Akafur breathed. It's talking about a prehistoric human civilization, one that rose and fell millions of years ago before even the dinosaurs. There have been theories but never proof. The threat RETURNS, the dissolution APPROACHES, CRETORS must be preserved. The threat, Maxwell asked, what threat? Before the void could answer, alarms blared throughout Vigilant Eye. Lieutenant Vega's voice came through the comms, tight with panic. Captain, something's happening to the void, it's changing. On the main view screen, they watched as the void began to pulse and ripple, its perfect darkness now shot through with streaks of blinding light. It was as if the fabric of space itself was being torn apart. Dissolution DATCTED. Preservation PROTOCOLS initiated. The presence withdrew from their minds with jarring suddenness, leaving them gasping. The echo's surface cracked, golden light spilling from within. It's not attacking us, Admiral Thorne realized, staring at the view screen. It's protecting us from that. Beyond the void, where Pluto's orbit should have been, space itself seemed to be unraveling. Not darkness but nothingness, a complete absence of matter, energy, even space-time itself. And it was spreading, consuming the void as it approached. Professor Akafur clutched the echo as it continued to fracture. The dissolution, that's what the ancient records were warning about, not the void but what the void was created to fight against. Captain Maxwell's mind raced. If the void was created as a preservation mechanism, then all those civilizations, all those worlds, they weren't destroyed. They were saved, Kapoor finished, digitized, stored, protected from this dissolution. Outside, the void was fighting a losing battle. Nearly half of it had been consumed by the advancing nothingness, and the remainder was retreating, pulling back toward Earth. Custodian failing, insufficient energy. Dissolution cannot be a contained. It's dying, Akafur said, horror in his voice. And when it falls, that thing will reach Earth. Admiral Thorne's hologram flickered as communication systems began to fail. What can we do? Our weapons are useless against something that consumes reality itself. Captain Maxwell turned to the echo, which was now more gold than black, pulsing like a heartbeat. A desperate idea formed in her mind. You said the void, the custodian, preserves information, energy, entire civilizations. What if we gave it more power, enough to fight back? The planetary shield network, Kapoor suggested, eyes widening. It's generating more energy than anything else humanity has ever built if we could redirect that power. We'd be defenseless, Thorne objected. We're already defenseless, Maxwell countered, but the custodian isn't. It was built to fight this thing. Akafur nodded slowly. The echo must be the control interface. That's why it was left on Mars, a backup system in case the custodian ever needed to be reactivated. Maxwell made her decision. Redirect all power from the shield network to the echo and prepare for planetary evacuation just in case. As engineers worked frantically to reconfigure Earth's defenses, the dissolution continued its advance. The void, the custodian, retreated to Earth's orbit, forming a last barrier between humanity and extinction. In Vigilant Eye's transmission chamber, the echo had transformed completely, now a sphere of golden light that illuminated the room with painful brightness. As the shield network's power flowed into it, the sphere expanded, connecting with the custodian in orbit. Will it be enough? Maxwell asked, shielding her eyes from the glare. Professor Akafur couldn't answer. The sphere had engulfed him, lifting him from the floor as information passed between the aging scientist and the ancient creation. His eyes were wide, filled with golden light, his expression one of wonder and understanding. It remembers us, Akafur said, his voice overlaid with something older, deeper. After all this time, it remembers its purpose. The sphere expanded further, encompassing the entire chamber, then the station, then stretching out to join with the custodian. From Earth, it looked as if a second sun had been born, a golden sphere that pushed back against the nothingness of the dissolution. Inside the heart of the light, Captain Maxwell found herself floating alongside Akafur. But they weren't alone. Shapes moved around them, echoes of the countless civilizations preserved within the custodian. Not just images, but the essence of entire species, cultures, worlds saved from oblivion. The custodian was failing, Akafur explained, though his lips didn't move. Over millions of years, it forgot its original purpose. It continued to preserve, but blindly, without understanding why, until it found us, the descendants of its creators. And now, Maxwell asked, now it remembers, and with the power we've given it, it can fulfill its purpose once more. Outside, the custodian expanded, golden light pushing back the nothingness of the dissolution. Where they met, reality itself seemed to warp and twist, laws of physics struggling to reconcile the irreconcilable. On Earth, humanity watched in awe and terror as a battle beyond comprehension played out in their skis. The golden light of the custodian fought against the absolute nothingness of the dissolution, preservation against annihilation, existence against oblivion. For 3 days the battle raged. The custodian drew power not just from Earth's shields, but from the very sun itself, channeling the star's energy into its struggle. The dissolution pushed back, consuming light and dark alike, erasing stars from the sky as it spread. Then, on the dawn of the 4th day, something changed. The custodian stopped retreating. The golden light stabilized, forming a perfect sphere around Earth and its star. The dissolution pressed against it but could advance no further. Inside Vigilant Eye, which had been absorbed into the custodian's matrix, Captain Maxwell and Professor Akafur witnessed the final stand. Stalemate achieved, dissolution contained, creator world preserved. But for how long, Maxwell asked. Indefinitely, the custodian endures, the memory survives. Understanding dawned on Akafur's face. It's creating a pocket universe, a space where Earth and the Sun can exist, protected from the dissolution. Correct, all that remains will be preserved here. The dissolution will consume the outer universe, but cannot breach this sanctuary. All that remains, Maxwell repeated. What about the other species, the ones that fled? The custodian seemed to hesitate. Beyond reach, beyond salvation, the dissolution moves faster than flight. The realization hit Maxwell with crushing weight. The other civilizations, the ones that had chosen to run, they were already gone, erased from existence by the advancing nothingness. Only Earth, which had chosen to stand its ground, remained. We're all that's left, she whispered, the last living beings in the universe. Not last, not alone. All preserved within the custodian live still in memory and essence. Images flashed around them, the countless civilizations stored within the custodian over millennia. Not just data, but consciousness, preserved in a state between life and digitization. Creators have choice, join The preserved, or continue physical existence within the sanctuary. You're offering to digitize us, Admiral Thorne asked, his hologram now part of the custodian's network, to make us like the others. Or remain as you are, within limits of sanctuary. Both paths lead to preservation. The leaders of Earth debated for days as the custodian maintained its vigil. Some feared the idea of digital existence, seeing it as a form of death. Others saw it as transcendence, a chance to join the greater community of preserved civilizations. In the end, they chose both paths. Half of humanity would remain on Earth, living physical lives within the sanctuary. The other half would join the custodian's matrix, exploring the vast repository of knowledge and connecting with other preserved species. Captain Maxwell stood with Professor Akafur at the edge of the golden barrier, looking out at the nothingness beyond. The stars were gone now, consumed by the dissolution. Only their sanctuary remained, a bubble of existence in a universe of oblivion. Was this always our destiny, she asked, to be the last one standing? Akafur smiled sadly. Perhaps, or perhaps this is just another chapter in a much longer story. After all, we created the custodian once. Who knows what we might create next? As if in answer, the custodian's voice echoed around them one final time. The end is never the end. Preservation leads to renewal. In time, even the dissolution will pass. And when it does, life will begin again. Maxwell looked back at Earth, shining blue and green within its golden shield. Humanity had stood when all others fled, had faced extinction with courage rather than fear. And in doing so, they had discovered a truth older than civilization itself, that preservation was not merely about survival, but about remembering, understanding, and passing on the flame of consciousness, no matter what darkness might come. "We stay," she said softly, echoing the defiant cry that had begun their journey. "We always stay." And within the sanctuary of the custodian, the last remnant of a dying universe, humanity continued, not just to exist, but to live, to create, and to remember.